fresh air. No.
All right, you're back at it with a breath of fresh controversy. One of these days, I will say it right.
All right.
We are here today with myself, Zach, and Jay. And today's topic is going to be the State of the Union that was delivered by Trump.
Just last night. Yeah.
And it was a bit of an interesting time. There was quite a few things that went on that were a little bizarre and definitely worth talking about. So let's dive right into it. So when the everything opens up, Nancy Pelosi goes to shake his hand, and he did it. He doesn't bite. And obviously the left is gonna go, what an asshole, what a jerk. But I thought, all things considering, that's probably the appropriate action. I mean, you're trying to kick the guy out of office, and so he's just not gonna shake your hand. It's like, well. And I think it's also a sign of the times, a sign of the polarity of what's going on right now. There's a very Team A, Team B tribalism.
Absolutely.
And it is what it is, man. I don't really think you could get too mad at Trump. There's other things you can be a little more critical of Trump for doing. So that happened. I don't know if you have any remarks on that before I jump into the next bit.
Well, it's really funny, and it's got me kind of torn. I mean, in a way. So the way I remember it now, I think he hands her his speech. He has to look up to her because she and the vice president sit above him. The way this is all set up, which is all very interesting optics, and it's. So
yeah.
And then she goes she puts her hand out to do the obligatory handshake, and he just looks at her and he turns, and then she lifts it real fast.
Yeah.
Oh God! And then at the end of the night, she's tearing up the speech. Which I don't know if you want me to jump to the end there, but I wanted to keep on Nancy just a little bit there. She's tearing up the speech, and it's just funny as heck. I guess it would have been funny if Nancy Pelosi is listening right now, or any of her relatives. Or any of her close confidants. Okay, here's where you could have been better, Nancy, okay? And I'm not necessarily saying I'm a Nancy Pelosi fan, but she ripped it up more and then threw it all up in the air like confetti at the end.
Yeah.
It just threw it up with her hands in the air, like, and just walked away.
Yeah.
That would have been the best, okay?
Own it. Yeah,
own it. You're going to tear it up little bits, throw it up in the air.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So
yeah,
that's where I think she had an opportune moment there to really express herself. I don't know. I mean, on one hand, you can look at these people and say, "Oh, why are you being a bunch of babies? Donald, you should shake her hand, and she shouldn't be tearing up his speech, overtly publicly like that." And then on the other hand, you think, there's been other State of the Union addresses before, and sometimes they all do like a little bit too much of this kumbaya and both parties, and it's a weird thing where sometimes you feel good about it, and other times you feel like, no, what are you guys doing? Maybe it all is kumbaya against. It's you guys really against the American people. You're both of you Demopublicans, you Republicrats. It's not, and so I don't know. Maybe it's refreshing to see people. Okay, yeah, just don't do the pleasantries. Yeah. Just be who you really are. So I don't know. I don't know. I think we all have to laugh. But again, as always, what is really important is the substantive things that were said. And the things that actually had some real meaning, in the address, and we should get into some of those things, I think. And if you wanna dive into that.
I mean, so I tried to watch all of it. I didn't watch all of it. So I digress a little bit. But I think for anybody who was watching it, you could probably understand why it gets a little repetitive.
A couple parts.
The first 7 minutes. Okay, I looked at it, and the first 6-7 minutes are him saying the unemployment rate is the lowest it's ever been, and everyone stands and cheers. Right, everyone stands and cheers. Mike Pence. Every time he says a sentence, he finishes a sentence. Every time it's like Mike Pence has got that call of like, all right, time to stand up. It's time to stand up and clap. Look at everybody. Look at Trump. Look at everybody. I'm just gonna stand here and clap.
Yeah.
And, everyone dies down. He says, unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. in the black community. And everyone rises up. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Pence stands up,
Yep.
looks at him, nods, clapping, and everything. Sits back down. Unemployment is the lowest it's ever been for college kids. It's like just the same thing.
Yeah,
it's like
basically
how to
repeating it and just breaking it up and stretching it out. Yeah, as long as
you're saying
much
the same
as you
thing
can.
for the first 7 minutes of your speech. Is the same
African American
line.
youth is and the whole thing, and
it's
then
the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like, dude, like, what are you doing? You know,
he wants to
You're
rub
the
it. He
president.
wants to rub it in the faces, I guess, and use it as he's using it as his re-election campaign. It's underway. His re-election campaign is underway, apparently, and on that note, I mean, again, I will say, I think for his supporters and perhaps anybody in between, which we don't have a whole lot in between anymore, although in this form I think maybe we do, but overall I think he did good. I mean, as far as people who are not going to check into things, perhaps. I mean, we'll get into some of the nitty gritty here shortly. I do got some problems with some of the things that were said, but I mean, overall, I think his supporters loved it. His supporters loved it. Democrats hated it. The optics and the visuals and the Democrats, when they didn't stand up for certain things, and certain Democrats didn't stand up for certain things, those optics look very bad visuals.
Yeah.
For them, if we're trying to move the needle, if we're looking at this, that you've got 40 to 45% on each side, knowing already that they're going to vote either for Trump or they're going to vote definitely against Trump. So then you've got those people in the middle. You've got people for that 5 to 10% of the swing vote. 5 to 10% could be, in that percentage, could be people who've never voted before, first-time voters.
Yeah.
Overall, I think it was a good night for Donald Trump. I think it was one of his better performances.
That's why you'll find me. I'm going to rip into him a bit here, but I want you to start off with what you liked about the speech. Let's start off with what you liked about the speech first.
I think he handled some things very smoothly. I like some of the guests. I thought I think it's Charles McGee. I don't have that in front of me. He was the general, and we gave him some medals earlier in the day to make him a brigadier general. I thought that was excellent. And I think the guy lives out in Ohio, again, a battleground state. Then a little bit later, there was a little African American girl and her mother. I think she was he was talking about school choice at that point. I think she was from Pennsylvania, also battleground state. That a lot of people didn't think that he was going to win last time around. So he did a lot of really smooth kind of stuff like that. Had the one Border Patrol man who I believe was an Hispanic American. They praised him, and so he did a lot of really clever stuff like that. A lot of reaching out to minority groups. I think a little bit more, which is very smart on his part. Does he mean it? Does it really? Is there any real substance behind it? It's hard to tell. It's really hard to say about that. But so again, I like the guests. I thought that was all pretty good. I liked a lot of the stuff. The overall message, he did try to actually give the Democrats a little. There was a few times he was trying to be bipartisan. He talked about getting some things done on the criminal justice reform. And he said, and we got it done. And the Democrats did cheer there. And Nancy Pelosi was confused a couple times. She realized, I got to cheer. I'm supposed to cheer now, and I'm not supposed to cheer this other time. And so she had to really stay on her toes.
I did notice, there was a look of confusion on her face at different times, that's one thing that I've been saying to a lot of my liberal leaning friends that just hate Trump is he has gotten things done that he has done good things, especially for that are issues that liberal-minded people have been talking about for quite some time. Legalizing hemp and the criminal justice reform being two of them that I really feel like have been completely ignored, and all this other Twitter crap has just become a smokescreen for some of the good things that he's gotten done. So I completely agree on that. So yeah.
He mentioned the Food and Drug Administration. He needed to talk more about that. He talked about the transparency in healthcare, and I thought that was an excellent thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. So I mean, overall, I thought the president had a really good night. Again, superficially speaking, at least, at the very least, at the surface. Okay, for his backers, and then for maybe some undecided people. Obviously, the people that don't like him, I don't know if he could have won them over no matter what he did. But and then coming off the Democrats just having a debacle in Iowa on their caucus Tuesday. I know it was a Monday night. I think it's all. I still don't even know if they know the results.
Yeah.
This is a couple days after, and it's just it was. I mean, it's just sad. It's just sad. So the Democrats are looking like they're a mess right now. Basically,
Yeah.
they're not coming off very strong, and I think President Trump, he seemed to be commanding last night, and he seemed to do very well. And there was some moments there. I mean, maybe it was a little hokey, but I'm sure to have the soldier come out, surprise the wife and the child. I think with that was very nice as well. And there's several of the guests were. That was it was good. It was some good stuff there. Now, having said all that, I want to go to the other side of the coin here. So again, if people out there think that this is Jay speaking out, and am any sort of a Trump lover, no. On this forum, what I hope to bring to it, and I hope that the other panelists bring to it, but at least I can tell you I can do my part. Trying to bring more of an objective view and an objective balance on the issues of the day, and tell people the truth, or at least give people all different sides and angles on what the heck's going on. I mean, when we start to get reduced to Trump lovers versus Trump haters out there, it gets very petty, very childish, and we're not really accomplishing much, and that's what's really sad. There was a lot of things to criticize there. One of the biggest things I have a problem with Donald Trump, and this could all tie in, Zach, if you do a show, as I've been saying, if we do a show about where the modern day right is at. Because the modern day right, I'm of the belief that it is very important, but it's very messed up. It's very mixed up. People are very confused, and they may cling to certain things without really checking them out, and not without really trying to questioning them. And this is the problem. And as the left gets wackier and further out there, that only makes it easier for people just to cling to the Republican Party, for example, without really checking their people out or keeping their own people in line. And this is the problem. And so, for me anyway, long story short, and this is what, if you do a show about the modern day right, I think the Republican Party, I just want to be very clear to the people out there listening, I think it's a phony party. It's a faux right party. It's not really a right party. And we will do a whole show on that and dissect that and explain that in a thorough way. But I just want to get that out there. So now I'm going to give you the other side, folks. As I said, on the superficial part, I thought Donald Trump looked good. I'm sure supporters loved his State of the Union address, and maybe even some independents he could have even won over. But now we're going to get into some nitty gritty here right now. When he talks about the economy, obviously presidents like to do this if things are going good. If things are going bad, they like to blame others. It's a thing politicians do. But things are not as rosy as he says. There were some definite exaggerations, if not out-and-out lies, in some of the things he said about the economy. It is good to get some people off of the food stamps, like he said. That was a good thing. The unemployment rate is very low, although for a long time it has not properly been measured. So I don't know if it's even being properly measured now. But allegedly it is at record lows right now. And that's a good thing. People working is a good thing. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But we still have a lot of underemployment. And a lot of people, wages aren't really keeping up with the economy, and that's the real problem overall. More than just the fact that somebody has a job. I mean, do they have a good job? Can they really support themselves? Do they have a way to the middle class? those are the kind of things that are of great importance. A couple of things he said about the GDP, I think he got some of that wrong, or he was definitely exaggerating some of that.
Yeah, something like 12 trillion additional something to our GDP or whatever it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's exactly proper the way he was calculating that.
And how much of that is affecting, on a population level, who is that ultimately affecting? I know the right has this whole idea of the trickle-down effect, but I think I think anyone who still argues that is sort of oblivious to the reality of that. I think more of these people who have all the money are just hoarding more money when they get it than it's actually trickling down to the grunt, the janitors, and the people walking in the door. And I think we've talked about some of examples of that in prior podcasts, but the wealth gap has definitely gotten larger and larger, even compared to 100 years ago.
Right, and one of my biggest issues for the people out there listening, and please correct me if I'm wrong, or anyone put any comments below on the YouTube page here. Yeah. Maybe I missed it. I could have stepped out of the room, folks. I did think I caught most of the address, if not all of it. But did he mention the national debt at all?
Yeah.
Our national debt is over $20 trillion right now, folks, and growing. And, this is something that I just really feel that Democrats, Republicans, so many people just, they call it the elephant in the room or the gorilla in the room or whatever you want to call it. It's just, it's been this way for a long time, and it just keeps getting worse. And what nobody understands is the interest rates are very low right now. When those interest rates go up, which at some point they're going to, we're all going to be in a world of hurt. Mm-hmm. And it's just it's really a scary thing. And some believe, well, we can grow our way out of it. Well, I've yet to see that. And the national debt has gone up with Donald Trump. And so, is he a real conservative fiscally? I don't really see it. The way he ran a lot of his businesses, some of his businesses went bankrupt. And so I really don't, when he says the State of the Union is strong, well, parts of it are good. Parts of it, like I say, you can be positive about, but the real pillars of strength, I don't know. I don't know about that at all. The national debt is concerned me. And for the folks listening right now, this guy has been concerned about the national debt going back to 1990. It was like 3 trillion point something then. And I was scared then as a young man. And it is, as you all know, it's all grown. There was a brief little stoppage in the late 90s. There was some hope. Maybe we're going to get a hold of it. And then it just went crazy after that. And it's going, super crazy in the last 10 years, basically. Actually, 12 years. But so that Donald Trump is a little bit wrong about. One of the things he has really bothered me about, not just last night, and this ties in with the national debt, but he's done this before. He did this when he was running for president. He did this on some show. Bill O'Reilly's not on Fox anymore, but there was an interview he did with Bill O'Reilly, and people who love Donald Trump or love Bill O'Reilly, if you want to find it, it's out there somewhere. You can find this. And he's doing some interview with O'Reilly, and he says something about how, the generals told me they didn't have bullets. Their soldiers didn't have ammunition, and talking about this whole rebuilding the military. And Donald Trump has increased the military spending since he's come into office, and I think this is just awful. Okay, This is just awful. As I see it, no one wants to talk about this. And I think some people don't want to look at numbers and question these things. They don't want to understand these things. And so they just hear the jingoism of rah rah, oh yeah, we're the world policemen. Or we're going to straighten out. We'll get those bad guys in the Middle East, not look at the bigger picture. And maybe we shouldn't even be in the Middle East. And maybe we're poking our finger in people's eyes that have a huge religious and tribal and area of land disputes that go back many, many years, and we're going to come over as the Westerner and tell them what to do, or be the security guard, or be the referee.
Right.
I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. And to do this, it's cost us billions, which add up to trillions of dollars over time.
Yeah.
It's insane to the membrane, and we're still doing it. We still have troops in Germany, by the way, folks. We still have troops, I think, in Japan.
Yep.
Definitely have them in South Korea, and a whole bunch of areas in the Pacific Rim on land and in sea. we're spending tons of money that we don't have.
Yeah.
And by the way, folks, okay, we have to borrow some of this money. And who does that? Who buys our bonds so that we can use more money? That's the form of borrowing. Who does that? Well, that's right. Saudi Arabia is doing some of that. The Saudis. Yeah, think about that for a minute, folks. Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with that? And then there's the Chinese.
I was gonna say, I think Chinese actually buy more of our bonds than Saudi Arabia does, but they're both two of the big contenders that are buying those bonds, and so I think it's very easy for Trump to twist the public opinion and go, we're reinventing these trade deals with China. Of course he's going to let you do that because they're buying all of our bonds, right? So of course he's going to let you reinvent these trade deals because there's more money in the interest that that on the money that we're borrowing from China to spend on that military, right? There's probably more money there, so they're able to just kind of go, oh yeah, sure, like, yeah, we are screwing you in two ways. I guess we'll just screw you in one, and it'll be a little bit of a yin-yang. But we're still going to buy stuff from China. I mean, that's not going to... I don't know how these trade deals are not...
They're not done yet.
They're
all being worked on.
Yeah, exactly.
And he talks about them all like they're all a done deal. Now, the one with Mexico, I haven't seen the fine print there, but that leads into maybe another program we're going to do. I mean, obviously there, we should cut off trade with Mexico till they help us better with both illegal immigration and, more importantly than illegal immigration, is the drug war, the drug problem, the so-called drug war, which maybe we'll get into that in more of a greater length in a different show. But this all ties in for me with this whole when he says this rebuilding the military stuff. There were actually many lefties who were critical of President Obama for still spending so much on the military. Yeah. And here I am, someone who sees himself as a righty, even though I'm going to criticize a lot of Republicans. So I hope people out there can get used to what I just said, because the way the world is, not many people can wrap their heads around what I just said.
Yeah.
But in this forum here, folks, as I say, you're going to hear something a little different than you hear perhaps in other places. I hope not. I hope there is more people trying to be objective and deal with an objective reality versus all the things people want to believe in, all the fairy tales that people want to believe in. But anyway, we're going to try to break it down here. The other part for me last night that was very difficult to... Well, by the way, here, let me toss it back to you, Zach. Okay, sure. I'm hogging it too much. I have a big issue with something that happened last night on one of the guests. Did you have more you wanted to add about the president?
No, you got to it before I could, man. And right on. I think there was a lot of stuff when he's talking about the GDP and the progress of our economy that we on the population level are not seeing, right? It's like I think there was a fun and funny post I saw on Facebook that was something like, you don't measure how well a company is doing based on the new car the CEO gets, right? It's like this. It's kind of like what Trump was saying is like the owner of a company or the manager getting handed a new Mercedes and showing the guy that's working on the ground level going, look at my new Mercedes, we're doing so well, and his pay raise isn't going up, or maybe it's going up a quarter, and it's like we've strayed so far from I think any sort of a fair game when it comes to the economy, and I think a fair game is definitely optimal for everyone. I don't think that we should dispense with the hierarchy. There should definitely be people who are making a lot more money than the average Joe. There has to be some sort of value system and things we desire more than others. And skills and talents that we admire and desire more than others. It has to be there, right? There needs to be a ladder to climb. So you get all these socialist and communist types who are like, we're just going to flatten out everything and everything's going to be equal. And it's like, no, that's terrible. That's terrible. But we definitely have something that's gone out of control here with what we want to think we have our free markets. I think we have an overregulated market that sort of monopolizes things in the favor of those who can afford that can afford the regulations and can afford the taxes and all that kind of stuff, and then they just profit because the competition has been squandered by those who cannot rise above the regulations and the taxes that exist. And a good example is something like look up for everyone listening, Google 100 years ago, what the average CEO, in comparison to the average guy walking through the door of a company looking for a job, made. It was something like a CEO made around 200 times what the average guy walking through the door looking for a job made. Okay, and I'm not saying that might be maybe that's not the ideal, but I think that's much closer to the ideal than what we have now. And what we have now is something like the CEO making 300,000 times what the guy walking through the door looking for a job makes. And I think that is ludicrous. I think some of this is devolving into something like something tyrannical, and something almost like a monarchy, where you have these kings, prestigious kings, that are only kings in name. There's nothing actually admirable or of value to these people, right? Who are able to live near godlike lives. Okay.
Yep.
And then the vast majority of people are still our quality of life is starting to go down, and I think there is something there, that should be addressed before it gets too out of control. And that's where I totally agree with a lot of my left-leaning friends, as far as you have to keep the hierarchy in check, right? You have to speak for the dispossessed. And so when he's talking about a lot of the GDP stuff, I'm like, I don't see it. I don't see it at all. My rent just went up $200 a month, and I live at like mid-level rental place where we live. It's not low income, it's not high, but it's not like the best. It's somewhere in the middle. And I've lived there I just signed my third lease, so I've lived there for just barely over 2 years. And it was about $975, $985 a month when I signed my first lease there, and now it's $1185. Okay, so it jumped up $100 each year, and I'm living in the same place. Okay, paying for the same things. The cost of living is going up, and the minimum wage, or not necessarily the minimum wage, but the average income. You shouldn't be looking at the minimum wage. You should look at the average income.
Right.
Is not moving in the same direction at the same percentages and levels. So, and the trickle down effect is not happening at all. At all, on every measure, it's not happening.
Right.
And we were talking about earlier about the pillars of a strong country, and I think we've talked about this before. That means a strong family, which he talked about a lot in his address. I don't see that at all. Okay, divorce rates are still incredibly high. Single motherhood is still incredibly high.
Children out of wedlock.
Children out of wedlock are incredibly high. Our education system's failing. Like, all of that stuff is not. I don't see these strides. I don't see what he's talking about there at all. I think that was just a lot of like for show and just to say it to make people think that. But when you look at the data, he's completely and entirely wrong.
Right.
So it's like you're lying. He's lying when he says the family is strong. So the two main pillars, and I think you're the one who told me this. Ross Perot was the one who kind of said this back when he ran, way back a few decades ago. The two pillars to a strong country are a strong family and a strong middle class. And I see the middle class shrinking and the family failing and being destroyed. People have said it's under attack. I think people are absolutely failing. I feel like the family is something. Yes, you have entertainment and culture and everybody in your ear, but at the end of the day, you decide what kind of life you want to live, and you get to make these choices.
Right.
So I don't care how many voices are in your head, you're the one that gets to decide what kind of relationships you want with people and what kind of relationships you're going to have with your children, etc., etc. And I see people on a very people level failing. And so I think that's ultimately where we can start to turn some of the tide, regardless of the economy, regardless of anything else. Is the family thing is in our hands. That's really something that's in people's hands entirely.
Well, some of what you're talking about here, we will address, I think, in other shows.
Absolutely.
Because I am a person who believes in free market capitalism. I really do, but I do think it needs a major reset. Major reset, and I don't know how that's going to happen. And so we can get into that another time. For me, one of the big things of the night that was very hard to swallow, and I thought was very disturbing, was the fact that he gave the Presidential Freedom Medal or whatever it was called to Rush Limbaugh. Okay. This was very, very disturbing. I have been a fan of, and here we're even doing it a little bit now, This is a podcast, so in a sense, this is the new talk radio now. But now we're going over the internet. I've been a fan of talk radio going way back, basically a good 30 years. This is about 30 years ago. I really started to get into talk radio, and I would listen to Rush Limbaugh, and I would turn him off pretty quick. I didn't find him to be very interesting. I didn't find him to be very intelligent. I didn't find him to be very engaging. Hardly takes calls. Hardly takes any calls that would challenge him. Whereas other people in talk radio would have more guests on. They had more interesting and informative things to say. They were more thought provoking. They were just far more engaging and interesting, and they would take callers who would argue with them. They weren't afraid. And this guy is Rush is one of those very interesting American dreams. Okay, and somebody should do a book called Only in America, and people like Louis Farrakhan could be in that book. Okay, I just insulted a bunch of people. And people like Rush Limbaugh could be in that book. And I don't know, maybe L. Ron Hubbard, okay? People who become extremely successful and you just think, what? And that's where I am with Rush Limbaugh. There's all these people on the right who think, oh, this is blasphemy, Jay. How could you talk that way? Rush he's so great. Well, folks, let's look at who this guy really is. First of all, if you really care about Rush, the real intriguing story about the guy is, well, how did Roger Ailes... This guy, and Russell Crowe plays him in a movie now recently. This is a guy who went on to later create Fox News. Okay, he was a big part of that. He was also a big part of the Republican Party at one point. How did this guy find Rush? High school dropout. Not doing Major League Baseball announcing, doing minor league baseball announcing. How that story? Okay, I got to look into it myself. It's fascinating. I want to know more about it myself. How did that happen? And how did Rush get to be the Cinderella boy of broadcasting? Because essentially that's who he is. This is a draft dodger, and the man later in his adult life who admitted to being an opioid addict. This guy, is just like who. And again, he's supposed to be Republican, supposed to be to the right, and with a talent on loan from God. Like, who talks like that? I mean, if you're getting, I suppose it was kind of tongue in cheek, but it was just stupid.
Yeah.
But the money he was getting paid, just like all of the broadcasting scum out there. I mean, I could just we could do a whole show on that. Bill O'Reilly's one, and all the people left going, oh, you're right, you're ripping the right. That's great. No, I'll come after you too. Barbara Walters, she was making at least $12 million a year. That the piece of garbage. I don't know. Can we say this in the air, or we can get sued? Yeah. I don't know if we're gonna get sued or not. I don't know if we can say this stuff. The piece of garbage, and it really came out. It really was a piece of garbage. Matt Lauer on the Today Show. Yeah, which was
I think it's sickening how much these people make for
what do they
doing
do?
This. Yeah,
what do they do?
Talking.
They're talking. So we're talking now. And hey, you want to pay me millions? I don't know. Maybe you could control me too and play me like a yo-yo too. Maybe everybody's got their price. So I'll just throw that out there.
Right.
But in the meantime,
I think it's almost ludicrous to be making a 6-figure income, like barely like $100,000 to be doing that kind of stuff. Would just be like you're gonna live a great life. You're gonna live a great life on $100,000, right? And you don't have to dig under someone's house to rewire their shit or deal with their plumbing or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're not. You didn't invent something.
Right. Yeah. He didn't invent anything.
You're just talking.
He didn't give you some stock pick to make you $1 million. He didn't tell you a cure for cancer.
Yeah.
And now, yes, he does have cancer. I don't know. They say it's stage 4. Yeah. Lung cancer.
He said he built his thing on a minor league baseball announcing. Like, this guy doesn't have a master's degree in some hyper intellectual education or anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How there should be a book called Only in America. Maybe there's a book like that because that's the thing about this country. There's a lot of people out there. Some make it, and it's amazing. You look at them like, how did you do that? So somewhere with him, and however Roger Ailes took him under his wing, or wherever Roger Ailes saw in him, and he's an incredible American dream story. I'll give him that. Incredible. I don't know that he had any money, but I assume he's rags to riches story. I don't know if Rush is a billionaire. I don't know. He might be, but he's definitely a centimillionaire, meaning that he's well worth over $100 million. At least he has been at some point in his career. Sold a lot of books and stuff. They did try TV a little bit. He didn't work on TV though. That was interesting. That didn't last long. The TV stuff he tried, but yeah, he's been on the radio and he still has a radio show that is syndicated. And obviously we just want to say, folks, there's a lot of people in this world I loathe or hate, okay, truly loathe, for lots of different reasons, but we don't wish cancer on anybody. And so, I'm sure with his money, and no offense, but I'm sure he's going to get the best of care. And so we want to wish him the best for his health. I don't know that he deserved to get that award from the president. He was sitting right by the first lady, and she puts it on him, and then he's crying, and I don't know. So that was definitely for the Republicans out there. But
don't wish cancer on him, but wish he would give maybe $50 million to the military since we seem to need it. Since we're spending $2.2 trillion more, he said he bragged about our military spending, which is already ludicrous. And that to me was that was the other thing I really wanted to dive into that you started to mention here was just what the hell? What are we doing?
Yeah, and we really need to have a whole show about that.
They're phony conservatives.
Especially when we have a show where we're going to rip on the modern day right and really take it apart for Republicans.
Let's do it right now. Let's do a little bit right now because
I
don't know I don't know how anyone can call themselves a conservative and not be speaking about the national debt on a regular basis. How is immigration one of your go-to things, right? How is the what is going on in the Middle East any of our business? We killed Osama bin Laden. Let's get the fuck out of there, okay? We need to be talking about our spending. Our spending. It's like imagine if you as an individual were in imagine if you had $10 million in debt as an individual. You as the listener, an individual, not your family, not your community, not anything like that. You as an individual were $10 million in debt, okay? That's something close to the equivalent of our nation in debt, okay? If our nation was an individual, they would be an individual on like an average income, okay, or even an above average income. That's $10 million motherfucking dollars in debt, okay? How do you deal with that, right? And you've got this like spending addiction, It's like that's what our government has become, and it's like, and that's why I keep diving. I keep going back to the whole, we don't really live in this whole. I don't care who you are, or what you believe in, or what you think. We don't have a free market. We don't live in capitalism. It's socialism through and through. It's socialism.
Right.
We believe we live and act in this manner of of huge central government spending a shit ton of money and taxing everybody to death. Income tax is like something like a quarter for most people. It's something like 25% of your income. Okay, that's insane. That means 25 cents on the dollar of what you work for goes to the government. Okay?
Actually, it's higher than that, I think.
It is.
If you take all the taxes.
Something like 30.
If you take all your sales taxes.
Just income tax. It's something like 25%.
Well, it depends on technically it depends on what level you're at. If you're talking about personal income tax.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But all taxes combined, and that's what people need to think about. Property taxes, sales taxes. You look at your phone bill, folks. Look at your phone bill. There's even a little bit of tax on your phone bill. Why? When you get tobacco, when you get alcohol, gasoline, there's all kinds of taxes on all of that. You add it all up, but yeah, it's insane.
It's something like 40 to 50% of your income goes to taxes. And then the flip side of it is what culture preaches what you need, right? You have to have a bachelor's degree. You have to have a new house. You have to have a new car. You have to have a new washer and dryer. You have to have the new lawnmower, snowblower. Go finance this, finance that. Go to Kohl's, go to Lowe's.
Right.
Go to finance it all, baby.
Yeah.
Okay? And what ends up happening is the average American, I think the average income in America is like $48,000. 40 to 50% of that ends up going to taxes, and 40-50% of that or more puts you in debt. Okay, it goes towards your debt. So when you're living it's like the average income person, even person that's making a little bit above average income, ends up living paycheck to paycheck, and that is wrong. That is wrong on so many levels.
People don't understand that under Republicans as well as Democrats, the size of government has grown, and even for the Republicans. Zach, I mean, maybe not everyone your age would understand this, but Ronald Reagan was the big guy, okay? He was like the big guy.
Yeah.
And size of government grew under him. It grew under him. And then his predecessor, George H.W. Bush, ran for president in 1988. I say predecessor. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, not predecessor. His follow up.
His follow up. What was the word I'm sorry, folks. I don't know the word I was looking for there for a second. But yeah, the man who would follow him, his vice president, ran and he said, "Read my lips, no new taxes" at the party convention in the summer of 1988, and everybody just went nuts. And it was a little bit taken off of a something like it was in a Clint Eastwood movie, I think, because he said, "Read my lips," something. Anyway, and then later during his first term, he won. I think his first term he did raise taxes and even created a few new ones. And you know, it's just
Liar.
It's just amazing what these people call themselves conservatives. I think they have a notion, they have a concept, they have an idealism of what they call conservatism, but the reality of what the Republican politicians have delivered for them is not the same at all. And the conservatives really need to ask themselves, what are you conserving? And I think most people like to think it's fiscal conservatism. I think people like to think it's conserving the Constitution. This is what they like to think, but that's not the reality at all. The Constitution's been under attack by Republicans as well as Democrats. Republicans have done. Republicans like to rip on Democrats and say, "Oh, they're all tax and spend, tax and spend." Well, the reality is Republicans are tax and spenders also, and Republicans are also borrow and spend, and thus we have over $20 trillion debt right now. And the military is a big part of it. It's not the only part at all, folks. I just want to get everybody clear on that. The whole Social Security thing has been a whole debacle this whole time as well, because the politicians have gone in and borrowed from that fund. They were never supposed to do that unless there was a national emergency. Yeah. They've done it more than once. That's both on the hands of both parties. There's a lot of fraud and abuse and waste in Medicare and Medicaid. Enough of that is not properly investigated. There's just a lot of mess out there that really needs to be straightened out. I don't know if there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here at all. I don't know. I look at all this and think of the future, and it's not good. It's not good. I don't know what to say to people. If you're thinking that Trump's got all the answers and he's the greatest thing, I mean, people are gonna do what you're gonna do. But we, at least in this forum here, we're gonna call it like it is. At least call it like we see it. And guys like Rush Limbaugh, this guy was basically a shill for the Republican Party, basically a Republican cheerleader. He was a guy who say, blame everything on the Democrats, but, protect the Republicans and yay Republicans. And he would do this, and he'd be a big apologist for the Republicans. And, and he criticized some Republicans once in a while, real lightly. But overall, he's just a joke. And really sad to see our president up there praising him like that. I get it in the sense that the guy just came out with the fact that the guy has, I guess, stage 4 lung cancer, which, again, we don't wish that on Rush Limbaugh. I don't wish that on anybody, okay? That's one thing we need to eradicate on this planet is cancer, and when all humans need to work together to do that. So the timing of it, I don't know. Maybe that's why it all worked out the way it did. I think the president could have done something where he could have done something separate with Rush Limbaugh. Didn't have to have him front and center, sitting next to the First Lady, and having the First Lady put this, I don't know what it is, Presidential Medal of Freedom or whatever it is around his neck. And
talk about bizarre.
You have a draft dodger president giving this medal to this draft dodger guy out there who's been very pro-military, all during the Bush years and stuff, go military, when he never wanted to go kill a commie for mommy in Southeast Asia when it was his time. Yeah. Another weird thing about Rush, people got to look this up. I don't know if you want to look it up right now. I don't know if he has any kids. It's like, dude, one of the big conservative things has been pro-life on abortion, pro-life. Well, gee, Rush, if you and the missus, I believe he's married. Maybe he's married maybe once or twice. I don't know. If you don't have any kids, you could adopt some, couldn't you, Rush? Couldn't you adopt some kids? Wouldn't that be a nice thing to do? Especially since you got all that money that you basically made for sitting around 3 or 4 hours a day just talking into a microphone. Gee, Rush, you know, you don't have the time or energy to go adopt a couple kids. I mean, you know, again, pro-life, you know.
I'm looking it up right now. See if
pro-life and pro-adoption, it should go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I would think, and I'm sorry if I'm being a little holier than thou for some people, but you just get tired, ladies and gentlemen, of everyone's with their double talk, everyone with their hypocrisy, and there's plenty of it to go around with the Democrats and with the Republicans. And on this forum here, I don't.
No children. No children.
There we go. That's what
4 marriages.
Oh.
3 divorces. No children.
and
worth $500 million.
So,
what a piece of shit.
So I know a Stephanie out there. I know a Stephanie out there. I know a Stephanie, and I don't know if she remembers me, but she met me. And we've talked. Well, we've talked more than once in a couple different interesting situations. I was on her show, and she was on my show once upon a time briefly. And you know, she just thinks he's the greatest thing in sliced bread. But she's a big pro-lifer. You know, to the Stephanies of the world out there, think Rush is a great conservative. There you go. How many marriages did you say, son? 3?
4 marriages, 3 divorces. What a family guy!
What a family guy! And how about adopting again? And I get it. Some people can't.
No adopted children.
Some people can't have kids. I get it. Okay, there's various reasons for that. Okay, we sympathize with that. Okay, but go adopt some kids.
Opioid.
Go.
Chunky.
Go.
Viagra incident.
Go adopt some kids, dude.
Whoa.
So you see, and this is the thing. And then the modern day lefties
confiscated Viagra from his luggage on a return from the Dominican Republic. Weird. This is all on Wikipedia.
So you see what I'm saying here, folks. And again, and when you exalt people like this, okay, when the president chose to exalt Rush, you know, and you can say, well, it was a nice gesture because the guy's probably going to die soon. Okay, but he probably could have done it in some other fashion and not use the State of the Union like that. For me, it was a turnoff. But I'm sure if you're a Rush fan, and by the way, folks, whoever, people are all mad at me right now, there's millions of you out there. So he's got all kinds of fans. But I'm sorry, I don't get it, okay? I've heard many radio talk show hosts over the years that I found to be far more engaging, far more interesting than Rush Limbaugh. So I don't know. I don't know if you can find a niche out there and you tell a certain demographic things they want to hear, and boy, you just become super successful. I don't know if that's what it's all about, but it did work well for Rush. Again, we wish him all the best for his health, but I had a problem.
Everything
with that.
Aside from that, nope.
But
no, yeah,
but,
the guy sounds like
a
yeah, like you said earlier, he sounds like a loser, dude.
To me,
I hate these Republicans that are total chicken hawks, or don't live the values. Like if you believe in something, live it, man.
Exactly.
Live it vehemently and act. If you believe in this sort of Christian value, and I think the Christian value that I'm about to describe extends beyond just Christianity, but it's a live by example, right? It's a live by example, like lead that life that draws people to follow suit. Okay. And it's like if you believe in certain values, live them.
Exactly.
Live them.
Yeah.
And then people will look at you and admire you, and they'll want to be like you, and then they're going to emulate those same behaviors. So if this guy's promoting all this Republican stuff, he's got no kids, he's been divorced 3 times, he dodged the draft, and he's worth $500 million. Are you kidding me? And he's got an opioid problem?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So,
Jesus Christ.
See this?
He sounds like the nightmare the Republicans are.
And so you got all these scum. Here's the thing: you got all these scum.
Jesus.
You got all these scum liberals right now who are listening to us going, "Oh, hey, you guys are finally catching on." See, it's like
no.
You don't get it. I don't want these people to be a part of the right, but he has been. He has been a flagship on talk radio for years, and this is really, really a sad, very, very sad situation. But like I said, I'm a huge fan of talk radio. I've listened to all kinds of people, and I never thought he was interesting at all. Never.
Yeah.
And his little talent on loan from God and this EIB network and this something else he called something university. It was just about I can't remember how it even goes, but the whole thing it was all just so goofy, and no real substance behind it. It would have been great if the guy would have been a real populist on the right, and he would have ripped on Republicans when Republicans did things that were wrong. That would have been beautiful, and he probably would have been even more popular. So, again, wish all the best, Rush Limbaugh, with his cancer, and we don't wish that on anybody. And I guess if you're a Rush fan, that was a nice gesture by the president to acknowledge him and give him that medal at the State of the Union. But for me, it was a little sickening. It was a little bit sickening. I just say so.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, I think the State of the Union by the president, he did pretty good. There was definitely some lies and exaggeration, definitely some smoke and mirrors as he's going into his re-election campaign here. Democrats look to be in disarray. My prediction has been the girl in pearls. I still hold it out there. I'm not feeling as confident about it as I did some months ago. At the moment, it's not looking good for my prediction. My prediction, just really quickly, is that we're going to have either a woman vice president or a woman president after this election cycle. I am probably 4 years too early.
I was going to say,
But-
maybe 2024 we'll finally get Tulsi in there.
But we shall see. It could be Bernie. Bernie could take Tulsi. It could happen. I'm just saying, it could happen. And if Bernie takes Tulsi, you don't know. See, then Donald might get rid of Pence, and then might take Nikki Haley from South Carolina. And you see, I'm going to be right. You think I'm going to be wrong? But I'm going to be right. All right. So you know what? I'm coming right back to it. Girl in pearls. Okay? Girl in pearls.
All right. And with that, thank you, Bernie, and thank you, Jay. We'll leave you guys to it. Till next time.